I also, unlike, or maybe like many of you, but I'm also out there weekly talking to audiences. And one thing that just frustrates the dickens out of me about public education, and I'm not sure everybody always acknowledges it, is we have a real split in our country right now. And I always share this with folks when I talk to audiences. We have those who have children in public school, either as parents or grandparents, or who are teachers, or who are really involved in the public education system. And the worry of background, including my wife and myself, is that perhaps we've gone too far and we've become too rigorous, and we're expecting too much out of our children. And believe me, I'm in that camp. But then I also read the paper, and at least once a month, I read a letter to the editor about America's failing public school system, and how they're dropout factories, and how education today is a joke. I turn on the TV, and I see commercials by ExxonMobil comparing us to countries where it's really not an apples-to-apples comparison, about how our children are ranked 30th in the world in STEM education, in test scores, on other norm reference tests taken across this country. And I'm out there talking to audiences, and I will share with you, there is a broad swath of this population that believes even today that we're not nearly rigorous enough in public education. There's a broad swath of this population that believes to get a quality education, you have to pull your child out of a public school and put them in a private school. And there's an even more frustratingly broad swath of this population that believes that if you pull your child out of a public school and put them in a charter school, just because it has the word charter or the word school, they're getting a better education. And we're trying to balance up here. Now, you may not like where I come down on the balancing scale, and I know there are some of y'all who don't like where I come down on the balancing scale. And I do think that there is a balance, and frankly, I think that about most things in life, we have to balance accountability and reasonable testing that's reasonably applied and that's validated testing. But you have to balance that against the over-testing of our students. And I'm on record, and frankly, I'm almost embarrassed to make this speech in this room, because out of the 100 people in here, about 85 of them have heard this speech from me 3 dozen times. But I keep seeming to have to make it. But the mere fact that we may not agree with you all across the board doesn't mean that we don't have children's best interests at heart. It doesn't mean that we are harassing, harming, bullying our children in any way. It just means that we don't agree. And I don't want to really go for the crease here and try to make it a home run, but I do love hearing when you all get up here and speak that you're working towards a legislative fix. Because some of you have heard me say this over and over again, that's where the fix lies. I do like hearing some of you all say that, and it's the first time I've ever heard it acknowledged, that when you hold your child out of testing, it's a form of civil disobedience, because it is. And I'm not willing to go that far. And I respect you if that's your choice as a parent, that's your right to make, but it's not our responsibility to make an accommodation for that. And that's really where we're having the disagreement right now. And if a parent wants to hold their child out of school, gosh forbid, we all know when school testing days are, then a parent certainly has that prerogative to hold their child out of school. I also want y'all to see one thing from my viewpoint too, and that is, I've always struggled with the issue. I'm not asking for a response now. If you want to come up and tell me afterwards, where does it end? In other words, if we believe that we have an individualistic public education system where every child can have their parent determine what's best for their child, then I understand, and until this is probably not going to be an apt comparison, well, I'm going to hold my child out of FSA testing and of course testing. Well, what is the next step? You know, this teacher, Mr. Sublette, is giving my child an end-of-course essay that's 25% of their grade. I don't think it adequately reflects their abilities or their skills, so I'm going to opt them out of that essay. This teacher is giving my child an end-of-course final in geometry that's 25% of their grade. And you know what? My child doesn't test well, so I'm going to opt them out of that final because you're unduly punishing, harassing, harming my child because they don't test well, and it's patently unfair that you're going to test them in algebra in the final or in any other test. And the point I'm trying to make is there comes a point where I think all of us have to decide, and I've clearly stated my position. I'm not willing to tell children and to take a leadership role as an elected public official that it's okay for you to flout state law, potentially harm your own educational advancement simply because I don't like state law. And I know that's humorous to some of y'all. Every time I have this talk, I mean, I feel like I give y'all a ton of respect, but I really don't sense that back from all of you, and that's not fair. You know, a lot of ways I get a smirk or a laugh or a smile or a shake of the head the whole time I'm talking. But that's where I stand on it. Doesn't mean I'm any less concerned about the future of our children. I've got 3 children in public school. They feel over-tested. I think they're over-tested. We're doing everything we can to weigh that in. We really are. But at the same time, you know, I'm not willing to tell them that they can go to the school, and none of y'all have advocated this, but you've experienced this firsthand, and disrupt the testing environment, disrupt the environment in the classroom for the other kids, or even make a statement in their classroom to try to make a point about the testing. And I respect that, you know, a parent out there wants to do that, but I'm not going to support it from this seat. And if that's a message that really isn't a popular message with some of us, I respect it, but that's where I stand on this issue. So thank you for entertaining me, guys. Anybody else? All right.